Good morning, Aisata.
Good morning, how are you?
Very good, very good. Thank you so much for joining.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we are all set to start. Alex, I'll be giving you the floor. Just thank again all participants for joining our meeting today. We are gonna start soon, so just want to ask my colleague to start recording, although I think she might have already done so. In the meantime, before we start, to all participants, please feel free to use the chat box and Q&A to interact during the conversation. It's a very short event, but we will be doing our best to interact on the chat box. So thank you so much. Alex, the floor is yours. You can start the event.
Thank you, Nayara. Distinguished participants, dear colleagues and friends, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alexander Trepelkov, and I am officer in charge of the Division for Sustainable Development Goals at the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs. On behalf of the organizers, I am pleased to welcome all of you to this virtual event to hear from officials and practitioners in different regions of the world about some inspiring examples of successful SDG implementation practices. We're meeting at a time of unprecedented challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused a global crisis with devastating socioeconomic effects that cloud our prospects for the future. At the same time, the current crisis has highlighted the importance and relevance of the 2030 Agenda as our roadmap for recovery efforts and has opened opportunities for transformative actions to achieve sustainable development. During the decade of action for the SDGs, we need to promote and scale up proven sustainable solutions to address existing gaps and constraints. The enormous challenges we are facing cannot be solved by any one actor or sector alone. More than ever, we need to mobilize all stakeholders in support of SDGs. The objective of this webinar is twofold: to introduce a new online publication on SDG Good Practices, success stories, and lessons learned for the past 5 years, and to launch a second open call for contributions from all stakeholders to the SDG Good Practices initiative. We hope that insights of practical experiences and impactful results will serve as an inspiration to all for accelerating efforts to make the SDGs a reality, especially for the benefit of those who are left behind. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Liu Zhenmin, Under-Secretary General for Economic and Social Affairs of the United Nations, to deliver opening remarks. Mr. Liu, you have the floor.
Thank you, Alex. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. On behalf of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, DESA, I'm pleased to welcome you all to this important event. We will hear inspiring efforts that are driving SDG implementation around the world. Since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda, governments and stakeholders across different sectors have been undertaking transformative actions, individually and collectively. Today, more than ever, we need all actors to redouble their efforts to fulfill our global commitments to sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, the COVID-19 pandemic has halted and in some cases reversed hard-earned development gains made over the past decades. It has also exposed the systemic vulnerabilities and inequalities, particularly for those already left behind. However, with every challenge comes opportunity. the efforts to recover from the pandemic offers a possibility to rethink and re-engineer our economies, adopt more sustainable and green solutions, and create a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable world. Dear colleagues, in 2018, DESA launched the open call for global practices, success stories, and lessons learned in SDG implementation. We received more than 700 submissions from governments, UN system, civil society, private sector, academia, and many other stakeholders from almost 100 countries. The submissions were reviewed by a team of experts from 20 United Nations entities. As a result, more than 500 good practices with clear evidence of results and impacts are showcased on an accessible online platform. Today, we are launching a digital publication that highlights 16 of these practices from across the globe. At this event, we'll hear from colleagues who are implementing some of these activities about the impacts and the results they have had. I'm confident that the diversity of sectors, regions, and the thematic top focus will serve as an inspiration for us all. Ladies and gentlemen, we are also officially launching today the second open call for good practices, success stories, and lessons learned in SDG implementation. We want to continue to learn from the experiences and creativity of all stakeholders across the globe. We look forward to hearing more about proven solutions that work and to making this information available for the benefit of all. I invite you all to share your experiences and contribute to the SDG Good Practice initiative. I wish this event a great success. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu, for your thoughtful and inspiring remarks. We now move to our panel discussion, and I would like to invite my colleague, Ms. Lotta Tahtinen, Chief of the Outreach and Partnerships Branch at UN DESA Division for Sustainable Development, to moderate this session. Lotta, over to you.
Thank you very much, Alex. And good morning, good afternoon, dear colleagues. We are so delighted to welcome you to this panel discussion on making a difference towards the decade of action, and to also officially launch the first edition of our new SDG Good Practices publication. My name is Lotta Tahtinen, and I am the Chief of the Outreach and Partnerships Branch at the Division for Sustainable Development Goals in UN DESA. As mentioned by Mr. Liu in his opening welcoming remarks, this publication, which is available online on our website at sdgs.un.org, I'm asking my colleagues to share this link with you in the chat box. This publication presents 16 examples of outstanding SDG practices from around the world that we had received in response to the first open call for SDG Good Practices, success stories, and lessons learned promoted by UN DESA between 2018 and 2019. First of all, let me express our sincere appreciation to everyone who has contributed to this publication, and also to the other about 500 entities and organizations whose efforts are featured on our searchable online database. I invite again all of you to also check out this database, which contains a wealth of information that we hope will be inspiring to you. Today we have 6 panelists from different sectors from around the world who we will now hear from They will be sharing with us their direct experiences in putting the SDGs into practice. Due to the very limited time we have available, I would like to remind all of our panelists to kindly limit their remarks to 5 minutes. We also invite the panelists and all of you, the participants, to use the chat box to ask any questions and to address comments. So without any further ado, let me now turn the floor to our first speaker, who is Mr. Giovanni Di Santi, Director of the European Commission Joint Research Center, who will present to us their global simulation model for SDGs Magnet. Mr. Di Santi, you have the floor, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Lotta, and welcome. And good morning from my side, even if here in Europe is almost evening. But let's say good morning to all of you. Correctly, I am representing the European Commission Joint Research Center, and as such, you know, this is the Directorate General which develops science in support of policy. So exactly in this context, we are very much active on SDGs, providing comprehensive analysis and assessment of the EU policies with respect to SDGs. We monitor the SDG implementation. We develop tools and guidance, you know, to assess how EU policies impact SDGs, now both from qualitative and quantitative point of view. So to do this, of course, we also need models. And today we present the Magnet that, as you know, is a global simulation model, and in particular is a general equilibrium model for SDGs. Next slide, please. So on the left-hand side, it's clear that if you want to have a real sustainable strategy for growth, you know, at global scale, but also at the European scale, of course, you have to consider that this strategy is very complex. It's very complex because it should encompass, first of all, to consider that you have just one interconnected global economic system, first. Second, that is coupled with very limited resources, so which means also limit growth, and therefore we need to find synergies and trade-off. No? Then, second, we cannot forget the social aspect, so understanding the behavior of partners, possible change in diets, and so on, under the principle that leaving no one behind. So the social aspect is very important. And finally, all what we develop, our analysis should, in the end, address a multiple objectives, no? So all the objectives in a single consistent framework, including SDGs. So we need to have a kind of integrated transversal analysis of all the, against all these SDGs. So to do such a complex, articulated cross-cut analysis, we do need models. And as I said, we use Magnet, which is again is a general equilibrium model. It's very well-known international tool, which has been used by several organizations, not only the European Commission, so us, but also FAO, OECD. Is very global because it does cover 140 countries and more than 90 sectors. So it goes from one sector to another. So it gives really a picture of the activities, of the different industrial activities. And it does encompass 12 out of the 17 SDGs and more than 60 SDG-related indicators. So I think it's a good model to start having a glue of what are the different impacts of policies on a relative number of SDGs and also their indicators, and again, a global level. Next slide, please. So I give you just an example. This is an example that we have used Magnet for understanding what are the consequences for the climate change mitigation, because as you know, with the Paris Agreement, which wants to limit the temperature increase up to 2 degrees Celsius, this means, in synthesis, a significant change to the world economy. So there are many changes that we have to implement. And Magnet, again, if you see this radar diagram, tries to understand what are the impact of these changes, so these new policy implementations, against the different SDG targets or goals. So you need to have a kind of integrated understanding. For example, in this radar diagram, you see, first of all, the dotted line is the impact of economy on the several SDGs, as it was in 2015. And then you see the other lines, the blue, the red, and the green, are the projection of the same economic model towards 2050 under different hypotheses. So the hypothesis of having an increase of 2 degrees, having an increase of 1.5, which is the green one, or doing nothing more than what is already planned. So this is the reference scenario. So we do understand, if you do want to evolve in representing this new economy and this new growth, now to limit as much as possible the climate change. Now, what are the impact, not just on the climate change, but also on the other sectors, on the other SDGs? And here you see very clearly that if you do apply this kind of methodology, you see that there is from the 2015 a clear benefit on several SDGs, like for example, the mitigation for climate change, on the introduction and use of renewable energy, then the income, so economic income per capita, the employment at the industry, so industrial employment. So there are some very important benefits and some very important positive increase and improvements. However, as you see from other SDGs, for example, the water scarcity, the biodiversity and the protection of forests, so the ecosystems, as well as on the other side, the food nutrition, so the food availability for people. So they have decreased, they have a kind of negative effect. So just to give an example, that if you do want to accept or to define or to optimize a certain strategic development growth, you need to consider all the angles, not just one angle. And there again, here you see that, for example, in this case, you also need to compensate this kind of strategy, for this evolution, also with some international support, for example, for the poor country, that they might be even more than other suggested to this kind of lack of food, so this poverty, for not protection, the water scarcity, so desertification, ecosystem service that will be reduced, food production, and whatever. So this means that you become aware of all the not direct effect that you need to consider whenever you do choose or you select a kind of strategy. And this is the big advantage of Magnet or this kind of general equilibrium model, that they tell you what are the effects of one policy, not just on the direct effects, but also let me call the indirect effect and the synergy trade-off among the different policies and among the different SDGs. So just to conclude, this is just an example of how we can get profit from this type of modeling. Next slide, please. So for the future, what we need to say is the following. These models, which are absolutely necessary in understanding how to future develop our society and how to consider different effects on different SDGs from policy perspective, we do need to improve them all. So there are three areas where we do need to improve. One is the data, because data, you know that these kind of models will get use of from a huge amount of data. So we need to have a proper use of data via intelligent artificial intelligence. There are still data gaps which remain. And in that respect, I think that it's important that all institutions, including UN DESA, will be very important, will play their role. Second, the social domain, as I mentioned before, we cannot simply have this economic analysis, but we need to consider the social domain, so the income equality, the gender equality, these are very important to be considered really sustainable growth. And finally, we need also to improve the models in the interpretation results, because as I showed before, any result is not just linear. So we do have also results that they can like somebody, but they can dislike some others, countries or group of people or group of interest. So the way we interpret the result is very difficult, is very articulated, and we have to have a kind of integrated approach. And so what we do want to do in the JRC for the European Commission is to continue also to support more and more this decade of action, so to go beyond what we have done so far. So we will also consider how to calculate the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on Africa, on African countries, and also on the trade agreements that Europe has bilateral, multilateral with different continents. So we will extend our analysis to the African countries, but also to the trade agreements. We will also increase the relation between climate change, mitigation efforts, and food security, because these three angles are very important to have a really integrated approach towards what I said before, economic growth. And finally, we also try to link the model to more detailed indicator models, such as the distribution of information on household and biodiversity. So in that nutshell, we will continue to use Magnet. We will continue to understand direct and indirect effects of policy and policy development, trying to integrate as much as possible all these kind of links among indicators, among SDGs, and among all the aspects. So the data, the data use, the social dimension, the coming to finally an integrated and overarching interpretation results. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to you, Mr. De Santi, for sharing this extremely interesting example with us. Just as a reminder to all our participants, we are recording this event and we will be making available the recording and also the materials that are being shared with all of you for future reference, including through our website, sdgs.un.org. So now let me give the floor to our second speaker, who is Ms. Kerstin Nagels, who is acting head of the Department for Asia, Latin America, Caribbean at the Deutsche Gesellschaft für internationale Zusammenarbeit, GIZ, who is going to be presenting to us their Fit for School program, which has supported the development and implementation of guidelines for water, sanitation, and hygiene, or WASH, in Southeast Asia. Ms. Nagels, you have the floor, please.
Thank you so much, Lotta. And let me first of all thank you, the organizers of this event, for the opportunity to be part of it, and to also congratulate everyone involved in the launch of the first round of SDG Good Practices. I feel really very honored and also very happy that you have chosen Fit for School as an outstanding example, because we really think that there is much to be learned from the program's development over time, and also because it's a program that can really leave you optimistic about achieving the Agenda 2030, despite all the difficulties in the current situation. What is Fit for School all about? Fit for School is an integrated water, sanitation, and hygiene concepts that is being implemented in schools across 4 Southeast Asian countries, that is the Philippines, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, and Cambodia. It has been commissioned by the German government for economic cooperation and development. It is being implemented by GIZ, whom I'm representing today, together with the country governments as SIAMIO, so the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, as well as other civil societies and business partners. What is Fit for School all about? It is about providing access to hand washing and toilet facilities in schools, and it is about establishing group hand washing and toothbrushing activities as school routines. That has been coupled with a couple of more related activities to improve child health. And you can really see that Fit for School is simple. It's a simple program, it's a simple approach, it is scalable, it is system-oriented, and therefore sustainable. So you asked what are the main achievements, and of course we have different layers of achievements, but the most prominent one is of course the improvement in child health and nutrition, as well as in school attendance. And there is one longitudinal study that I would like to quote from today. It is already dating a while back, but it was at the core of the scaling up efforts that the German government and the partner governments have taken ever since. And that was in the Philippines. That in that longitudinal study, we found out that thanks to the activities being implemented in schools, children came out with 20% less underweight, 30% less school absenteeism, 40% less infections from decayed teeth, and 50% less heavy warm infections, of course relating again to the positive nutritional and school attendance results. So the next one could, of course, be you ask, okay, so are you implementing this in just 10 schools or 20 schools across those 4 countries? But no, we are not. So school coverage started in the single digits when we started with the program. But ever since the adoption of governments, of their driver's seat in this program, it has really been a systemic approach, so that today we can say that we are reaching about 71 million children in the 4 different countries with the approach to school management and the gradual improvement of facilities and routines, and that 20 million of those children visit schools that already implement all of the hygienic requirements that we are putting as a 3-star level. So the second question was how is this practice contributing to the implementation of the SDGs? And it is, of course, as I just said, through the achievement of specific SDGs such as health, such as education, such as water and sanitation, with links to nutrition, gender, as well as partnerships. But I think what is very interesting about this program is also that it showcases that improvements in one sector require activities and interventions in another one. So to reach health impact, for example, it is necessary to act outside a very narrow health system. But for example, here to intervene in the education sector. And the tipping point in this case is really school management. So that's quite an interesting experience, I think, that we've been making. So also, SDG-wise, it confirms what gets measured gets done. I think monitoring achievements and documenting gaps in SDG implementation lie at the very heart of the Agenda 2030. And likewise, monitoring systems play a crucial role in moving forward with Fit for School. The program has been a partner for the 4 countries in setting up WASH in schools monitoring systems and thereby enabling them also to report on SDG progress and also to define new national priorities for moving further along. But also, as importantly, we have implemented the 3-star approach to WASH in schools, and that allowed governments, together with other stakeholders, to set appropriate country-specific benchmarks to incentivize school management to continuously improve facilities and practices while acknowledging local difficulties. Challenges abound, of course. It's time and again scarce resources. It's also, as I was saying, it's a cross-system and a multi-sectoral approach, so scattered responsibilities and sometimes also the lack of taking responsibility can be a challenge. And of course, it's a matter of long-term commitments by governments and development partners. COVID comes along maybe as a highlight of the importance of the program. And actually, it also contributed to bringing back some of the achievements of Fit for School to Germany. We have just installed one of the wash-a-lot facilities that were being pioneered in those 4 Asian countries in Berlin in one of the schools preparing for reopening after COVID. So let me stop there. Very happy to engage in a dialogue and pleased to also provide a presentation that could later on be shared with the participants.
Thank you so much, Kerstin, for those very, very inspiring presentation. And just as a reminder to everybody, you can read more about this example and all the others that are being shared today in the publication, which is now available online. And of course, browse our online database of about 500 good practices for additional inspiration of other practices. So now let me turn to our next speaker, who is Dr. Joseph Oye, who is Sightsavers Country Director for Cameroon. Dr. Oye will share with us Sightsavers' experience in Africa, in enhancing civil society engagement in voluntary national reviews, or the VNRs. Dr. Oye, I'll give the floor to you now, please.
Thank you, Ota. Thank you for the opportunity given to Sightsavers to share the work that we've done around VNRs. So Sightsavers experience of supporting VNRs in about 16 countries, a total of 23 countries in the period under review, that is 2018 and 19. So basically we did engagement of civil society to ensure inclusion, impact on the VNR, also beyond the VNR. Next slide, please. Yes, so the good practices. So for Cameroon more specifically, so we didn't have an SDG forum in Cameroon, and when the opportunity of the VNR came, so we did realize the necessity to have a civil society forum around the SDGs for a coordinated, participative and inclusive civil society contribution. So we had about 50 national and international CSOs with different thematic areas from different geographic areas across the country. And the group was inclusive because we had constituencies from representatives from disabled people organization, indigenous people, the pastoralists, the pygmies, and also older people. And so the main objective of the forum then was to write a complementary VNR report, which we did, and we actually assessed the status for all the principles of the Agenda 2030 and also each individual SDG, for which we highlighted civil society contribution. I have to say that this was very important, and this was certainly eye-opener for the government. I'll come back to that, and make recommendations to the government on the principles and on each SDG. Next slide. So in addition to writing the complementary report, we also engage in the government process. So CSOs were represented in the government VNR working group. And also we did share some specific reports that civil society did with the government to actually input and contribute to the government's VNR. For example, we Sightsavers brought together people with disabilities, organizations of people with disabilities, and we wrote a sort of VNR on disability that we shared with the government. Another organization worked on SDG 4 and so on. So we did contribute to the government process in that way, sitting in the group and also contributing information in addition to writing a complementary report. So the complementary report, when completed, was submitted to the government. We had two versions, a full report and a summary note. And it is very remarkable to see that the complementary report of the forum was appended to the national VNR report that was submitted to the UN, I have to say, without any alteration, in extenso, which was really, really great, particularly that level of trust and reliability on civil society was really exceptional in Cameroon, when we know the kind of environment where we are, where usually there is tension between the government and civil society. So in addition to that, the civil society did participate at the high-level political forum in July 2019, and we were a panelist on the side events of Cameroon side events that was on SDG 4, education reform in Cameroon. Other panelists were the UN system in Cameroon and the Minister of Planning in that panel. Next slide, please. So the key learnings that we have is that the inclusive nature of our group was really an asset, and that gave us a lot of credibility in the eyes of the government. because they really found our group as a trustworthy group, a group that was inclusive. Then we also had constructive engagement focused on proposing solutions. So it was really a constructive group whereby we didn't go confrontational with the government, and we were really we addressed all the issues, but in a constructive way. And we had a dialogue with the forum and the government throughout the exercise. So it was a very transparent process whereby the government on one hand and all the organizations in the forum knew exactly what we're about and what we're doing with open contributions from everybody. And also to note the importance of networking, because this was the first time we're doing a VNR in Cameroon, so we didn't have much information about it. So the networking with the Kenya SDG Forum, the networking with all other international forums like Partners for Review, then other groups, international networks really helped us to be able to bring this exercise to fruition. And finally, I have to say that post VNR, I think it was very, very good that we engage in that way, because at least there are two things that are happening post VNR. One is that there's a better engagement between the government and civil society. So the government has got to realize that the importance of civil society and the interest in working with civil society. So we did demonstrate to the government that we can not only contribute to the actual implementation of the VNR, of the SDGs. We also do contribute information, because the government itself recognized that a lot of information, that civil society will have more information than them in some areas, and also contributing to the monitoring and accountability of the SDGs in Cameroon. So at this point in time, we are following up with the government on the commitments that the government did at the VNR, particularly the commitment of setting up a permanent multi-sector, multi-actor group for SDGs monitoring, accountability, and reporting. So, okay, so that's where we are at this point in Cameroon. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oye. So now let me invite our colleague from UNDP, Ms. Nahid Hussein, who is Deputy Resident Representative of UNDP Yemen, to talk about their initiative, which is called Enhance Rural Resilience in Yemen. This initiative has helped local communities access sustainable energy, stable income, and self-reliance. Ms. Hussein, you have the floor, please.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and also for allowing UNDP Yemen to share its good practice and experience under ERI, which Enhance Rural Resilience in Yemen project, with you, which is exceptional given the very challenging circumstances. So in Yemen, more than 52% people in the rural areas don't have access to energy. This lack of energy has resulted into collapse of public services such as schools, health, and public offices, and also marketplaces. Close to 20% of displaced population live in open field without access to energy. The income generation opportunities have also reduced significantly due to the high price of fossil fuel and limited availability because of the embargo for the last 6 years. Renewable energy in Yemen has experienced a significant rise after the crisis and contributes positively to the GDP. However, there is very much centralized and limited engagement of private sector. This solar intervention through ERI project has made an effort to address the above problems. The project has focused on building the downstream activities to support the affected communities, both in terms of service delivery and livelihood improvement. Under ERI project, more than 2,100 individuals directly benefited from the support, and additional 10,000 indirectly benefited from the project. We also managed through this support to promote a very affordable and accessible green and clean energy at community level in most of the affected areas. The project has managed to demonstrate that decentralized solar off-grid solution can support conflict-affected communities in timely manner. The project also has supported communities to access decent jobs, especially women with dignity. In the same time, it managed to break the barrier in dealing with the solar intervention, where where communities are being trained to be barefoot technicians to support the installation and fixing system. All what I mentioned achievements has contributed significantly in improving the access to energy. Pilot initiatives such as what I shared with you has only reassured that implementation of SDGs is still a long way to go, but start can be made in crisis within a crisis context such as Yemen. Taking into account that Yemen is considered to be the worst humanitarian and development crisis, COVID-19 made the situation more catastrophic and severely affected the whole country. Of course, many challenges such as security, accessibility, and unpredictability are part of the daily implementation of this project. So allow me to share with you two major challenges that are related to this particular intervention. First one, the community acceptance. At the initial stage of this good practice, due to energy sophistication, it was difficult to influence the perception. So UNDP, along with its partner, the SFD and CARE International, developed community engagement strategy, which essentially helped in overcoming the challenges. The second challenge is the solar microgrid as business model. Initially, the project team also faced a challenge to present the practice as a business model. However, at later stage, the suitable business model in comparison to fossil fuel was developed, and the solar energy provides a radically cheaper rate that is affordable. Having said that, all the solar business are in operation and functioning and have been successful due to the nature and the structure of the business. The solar microgrid stations continue to make profit through the business and providing subsidy to communities who cannot afford due to the impact of COVID-19. The Solar Energy Initiative of UNDP and partners has received international recognition by Ashden Award 2020, and representative of the microgrid is now featured in BBC 100 Women 2020 list. UNDP, along with partners, are working to mobilize resources to scale up the renewable energy initiatives equally at upstreams and downstreams level. We are also in a process of developing a blueprint investment plan, as well as engaging with donors and private sector to scale up the solar microgrid from 3 to 300 decentralized off-grid solution. Thank you very much, and over to you, Rata.
Thank you so much for sharing that wonderful example with us, and congratulations to you also for this international recognition that your project is attracting. Now, let me invite our next speaker, who comes from the private sector, Ms. Maria Luisa Paiva, who is the Chief Sustainability Officer for Suzano, which is a forest-based company from Brazil, who is going to be presenting us an innovative program to restore degraded habitats and promote environmental conservation of ecosystems in the country. Ms. Paiva, you have the floor, please. We may have dropped Ms. Paiva. Oh, I believe you are muted. Can you try to unmute yourself, please?
I think now it's working, right?
Yes, we can hear you well.
Sorry about it. Well, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here. Thank you very much for selecting our initiative as one that's worth to be shared with the globe, let's say. We are very happy, and at the same time, it's quite a responsibility. No, every time you receive such a recognition, it's clear that you have to raise the bar. You have to keep investing and improving whatever you are doing. So thank you very much for the inspiration, for the provocation also. I'm here representing Suzano. Suzano is a Brazilian company, is the world's leading producer of eucalyptus pulp and one of Latin America's largest paper producers. Planting and cultivating trees are the essence of Suzano's businesses. We have one of the largest bases in Brazil. We are talking about 2.2 million hectares, which includes 900,000 hectares set aside for conservation. We are fully committed to zero deforestation, and we only harvest the trees we plant for commercial use. This year, we announced our long-term goals, 2020-2030, 12 goals, but I would like to highlight here 3 of them that we hope will give a relevant contribution to the SDGs. First one that I want to highlight is that we are committed to lift 200,000 people over the poverty threshold in our areas of influence until 2030. We are also committed to offering 10 million tons of renewable products to replace fossil-based products. And Suzano is already climate positive. I mean, we capture much more carbon than we emit. And we are committed to remove an additional 40 million tons of carbon from the atmosphere. And our restoration program, the one that brought us here, is part of this goal. This program seeks to restore degraded habitat and promote environmental conservation of ecosystems in 3 Brazilian biomes: Amazon rainforest, Atlantic forest, and the Brazilian savanna, which is called Cerrado. Given our geographical extension, our program requires a lot of social mobilization, cutting-edge technology, and high investments. This program has specific targets. They are set on an annual basis that have resulted in around 11 million trees planted in over 30,000 hectares undergoing restoration. Since the first day, each tree starts to contribute to the removal of carbon. And we estimate that in 30 years, these areas will have contributed positively to fighting climate change by removing around 22 million of CO2 equivalent. So this is one of our contributions to SDG 13. But our program, our restoration program, provides us other relevant contributions to the SDGs agenda. Income generation. All the seedlings that we use in restoration are produced by vulnerable rural communities. So it's an income generation program out of the restoration program. The program also promotes protection and conservation of water sources, SDG 6, and conservation of an important habitats with their biodiversity, SDG 15. And for sure, we are also contributing to Brazil NDC to the Paris Agreement. Well, I think one of the biggest challenges that we face is how to scale up this type of program. And we won't do that by ourselves alone. For us, the challenge is to engage the local players in that ecosystems to restore also their areas. So we have to encourage restoration beyond our boundaries. It's not enough only Suzano working on this direction. We need the whole ecosystem engaged so that we can be really making something that will be meaningful, important, and transformational for that area. I will share one of the initiatives that we have to approach this challenge. That's called the Mucuri Springs Project. Mucuri is the name of a river in Brazil and also of a small city. The project aims to promote an environmental regeneration and ecological restoration through an income generation program. So the project has a social approach and an environmental approach. We want to change people's life. We want to improve their lives. It's a very poor area, okay, through income generation programs, but programs that at the same time that will make them to have a better income, it will also teach them how they can, what they have to do, how they have to plant in order to make an environmental regeneration and ecological restoration, right? We also work through the local community, the local municipality, stimulating the design of public policies that can have a social and environmental approach, aligned with restoration, regeneration, and improvement of their lives. And we also work through strategic partnerships so that we can stimulate the entire restoration chain in that region. For us, the maintenance of health ecosystem is critical. And that's why we are protagonists and mobilizers in the joint development of innovative and sustainable solutions. Ecological restoration is part of our strategy to engage local players on the landscape scale to contribute to a bigger conservation of biodiversity program and shared value with society, we all together. And to finalize, I'd like to emphasize the importance of this initiative of recognizing the best practices that are driving change around the world. I think that by sharing this project, we will also contribute to inspire others to be part of this global transformation, to show that it's possible to transform. It's possible to change the environment and people's life. And that's what we are showing and providing here today. So thank you very much for listening and for the inspiration also. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria Luisa. And indeed, we do hope that all of these wonderful examples that we are hearing today will really serve as an inspiration to all the actors out there to implement the SDGs. So now let me turn to our last speaker, last but not least, my good friend Aissata Camara, who is Deputy Commissioner for Partnerships and Operations from New York City, which is of course the host city of United Nations headquarters. New York is also the first city in the world to report on local implementation of the SDGs through a voluntary local review. New York City has launched the Global Vision Urban Action Platform to share experiences with other local partners and global partners. So now, Aissata, over to you.
Thank you so much, Lotta. It's great to see you virtually, and I am excited to be here. Thank you for the kind invitation. Good morning, Excellencies, colleagues, and distinguished guests. As Lotta mentioned, I am Aissata Camara, and I am the Deputy Commissioner for Strategic Partnerships and Operations at the New York City Mayor's Office for International Affairs. It's a pleasure to be here once again. And before I begin, I want to congratulate you and DESA on the launch of this digital publication. This year has been difficult for many of us, but as we navigate these uncertain times, it is important to continue to share best practices for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. And by highlighting these 16 amazing SDG practices from around the world, this publication is doing just that. And I look forward to many additional editions that will come in the future. New York City has the honor of being selected as one of the SDG Good Practices for this publication through our work with the Voluntary Local Review, or the VLR. And although the city first released a VLR in 2008, our commitment to the SDGs started in 2015. And to illustrate, in April 2015, New York City committed to principles of growth, equity, sustainability, and resiliency through our groundbreaking 1NYC strategy, which is a model for sustainable development at the local level. And this strategy charted the path for achieving the goals, such as lifting New Yorkers out of poverty expanding access to nutritious and affordable food, and ensuring that those on the front line of climate change, oftentimes the most vulnerable New Yorkers, are protected against its risks. A few months after when NYC was finalized in September 2015, as we all know, world leaders gathered at the United Nations in New York City and right behind me and committed to the sustainable development. Recognizing the connections between One NYC and the SDGs, our office established the Global Vision Urban Action Platform in 2015 and in December. So the GVUA program uses the common framework of the SDGs to both share our successes and to learn from others on ways that we can better serve our constituents, New Yorkers. And for example, in 2018, our office hosted members of the United Nations and the diplomatic community aboard a sludge vessel to explore SDG 12, responsible consumption and production. Similarly, in June 2018, our office led a tour of 2 Green Thumbs community gardens on the Lower East Side of New York City that enabled the diplomatic community to learn firsthand how the Department of Parks and Recreation contributes to achieving the SDGs, particularly SDG 15, Life on Land. And after hosting various engagements with both local and global partners through the program, our office wanted to take New York City's commitment to the Agenda 2030 even further. In July of 2018, New York City became the first city in the world to submit our SDG progress report directly to the United Nations, thus demonstrating our commitment to accountability in achieving the global goals. And this is known as the Voluntary Local Review. The VLR is a report that enables local governments to share their progress towards the implementation of the SDGs directly with the United Nations. It allows governments to analyze challenges such as climate change, migration, and the current pandemic of COVID-19. And as you know, all countries are invited to submit a voluntary national review, or VNR, of the SDGs progress during the annual high-level political forum that takes place every July. And it is important to note that the VLR is not meant to undermine national government reporting, but rather to allow subnational governments to engage in these conversations. And with cities at the forefront of many global crises, we must utilize our collective power to advocate for and to create change. And this belief was one of the driving forces behind our decision to launch the New York City Declaration on the Voluntary Local Review last year during the General Assembly. At the time when we started, we had 24 signatures accelerate change in their communities. So I want to provide some examples of local governments that are working within the VLR movement. So when we look on the continent of Africa, in Accra, Ghana, they are using the VLR process as a tool for financial development. And when we look in Brazil, in the state of Pará, the VLR process has helped to ensure that local planning and budgeting instruments are aligned with the SDGs. These are just a few examples of the value that the Voluntary Local Review continues to provide for subnational governments. And even as COVID-19, the pandemic reshapes our reality, subnational governments continue to see the value in the VLR process as a way of helping them address the gaps and disparities within their local planning, while also helping them to remain committed to the principles of equity and sustainability. And so to ensure the alignment between local strategies and Agenda 2030, the VLR Declaration consists of 3 key commitments. The first commitment is to identify how existing strategies programs, data, and targets align with the Sustainable Development Goals. And the second commitment is to provide at least one forum where stakeholders can come together to share experiences, the lessons learned, and information gathered using the framework of the SDGs. And finally, this is the final process that interacts also with the United Nations, and it is to actually provide your report to the United Nations during the high-level political forum. It's important to understand that with the VLR, we wanted local governments to start where they are. And so the declaration emphasizes using existing resources to undertake the VLR process. And this is also a way to keep the threshold for entry very low. And this was intentional because at the end of the day, we wanted to make the VLR process meaningful so that each city engages with it in their own time and using their own policy processes. And so we see the VLR process as an opportunity for cities to to take part in the global conversation. And even more so, it is a tool for cities to identify ways to improve their service delivery for the benefit of their constituents. And as we look toward rebuilding post-COVID-19, the SDGs are going to be critical in our ability to ensure that we have a recovery that is inclusive and a recovery that is sustainable. And so we are grateful for you and DESA for the fact that you are hosting different VLR workshops aimed at bringing us local governments together in order for us to share our knowledge. And so while everyone that is watching today, we really encourage you all to join the movement. We encourage you to ask your local governments to partake in this process and to collaborate with their counterparts around the world. I would like to really once again just congratulate you and DESA for this amazing publication, and we really look forward to our continued partnership and engagement. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Aisata. Once again, thank you to all of our amazing speakers today for your presentations, and most importantly, for your continuous efforts and dedication to make the SDGs and the 2030 Agenda a reality. Just as a reminder to everyone, we've had a very lively chat conversation in the chat box. So I would like to invite all of you, including our speakers, to take a look at the chat box and react to some of the messages. So now let me pass on the mic to my dear colleague, Nayara Costa, who is a Senior Sustainable Development Officer in our division, and who will now introduce the second open call for the SDG Good Practices, Success Stories, and Lessons Learned. Nayara, over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Lotta, and many thanks to all speakers for inspiring us today and all participants. So it is my pleasure to share with you the information about the second open call for SDG Good Practices. As you have seen from the practices we learned about today and from the ones that are in the publication, the ones that are in our also in the data bank, we are looking for experiences that are showing results, that can inspire, that can share lessons, that can inspire breakthroughs, that can then be scaled up. So we are launching today the second open call. So we are looking for those inspirational ideas that are supporting implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals at all levels. The global, regional, national, subnational, community level, everything that is supporting SDG implementation is really welcome. For this second open call, we also have included we are requesting some information as well about the impact of COVID-19 in the practices and how the practices have been adapted, adjusted, or how they are also supporting in responding to the COVID-19 crisis. So this will be something else that we will be featuring from the second open call for SDG Good Practices. The information is available. It is all in English, but all submissions can be made in English, Spanish, and French. And who can submit? Governments at all levels, UN entities, international and regional organizations, and stakeholders from all relevant sectors. So we are really going broad. It's civil societies, youth groups, academia, private sector, you name it. So we are really looking for more inspiration from all of you. How you can do it, I will ask my colleagues also to post the link to the information about the SDG Good Practices, the second open call. There is an online form that you can use to submit the practices, but there is a website with the whole information that you can get, some frequent asked questions, and more. Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so you'll be able to go to this website and find all relevant information. You have between today and the 28th of February 2021. We'll be counting on the support of experts from the UN entities, and I am really grateful to see some of my colleagues that supported in the review of the first open call. They are attending this call, and we are really grateful for all the support that they provided. And we will be coming for you again, so wait for us. And also, I want to say that the submissions, as you've seen, we promote them throughout the year, either at the online platform. It's also a networking opportunity for you when you are showcased in the platform, because people can go and can reach out to you directly. We use it at relevant events promoted by DESA. This is our go-to for when we are looking for practices and experiences. So this will be our commitment to those practices, is that we will be doing our utmost to promote what we really feature in the database. So feel free to reach out to us. You will find more information on the link that we shared, and we will be looking forward to learn more from your experience. Thank you so much. Lotta, over to you.
Thank you, Nayara. We are looking forward to all your submissions very eagerly. And now let me thank all of you, our participants, our speakers, the Undersecretary General of DESA, the officer in charge of our division, for your participation, for your time. And we truly hope that the examples that we have heard from today will really serve as an inspiration as we embark in both the recovery efforts from COVID-19 and seek to rebuild a more inclusive, sustainable, and greener world for everyone. So thank you for your time, and wishing you a wonderful rest of the day. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Nayara?
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Nayara?
Oi, Maria Luísa.
Oi. Nayara, eu vi aqui no chat, tem uma pessoa que eu gostaria de responder, mas eu não tenho o e-mail dele. Tem como a gente descobrir?
A gente vai salvar o chat. Você tem?
Tá.
E
É o
eu-
Félix Dodds.
Ah,
D-O-D-D-S.
Sim. Você me
Você
manda,
vai
sim. Se você puder me mandar um e-mail, eu te conecto com ele.
Tá, malu.paiva.
Ok.
Ele é da United, ele é do grupo de vocês, da UN?
Ele é do grupo da sociedade civil.
Ah, tá. Porque ele pergunta dos impactos, e eu acho que é importante mesmo. Acho que é legal.